So good morning, everybody. My name is Russ Fitzpatrick. Most of you know that. I am one of the founders of the Associate Works Productivity Platform, which is actually a free national platform for real estate agents and then sponsored entirely by Annie Mac Home Mortgage now in 50 states. If you want to learn more about what we do, go to myworksuite.com up there in the top left-hand side of your PowerPoint. If you want to know more about Annie Mac Works and all of the free personal and professional development opportunities that are available for you and your realtors, click on AnnieMacWorks.com and become a bigger part of the Annie Mac Nation and our Worksaholic Army. Today's class is called Monday Mastermind: How to Build and Present Your Own Bulletproof Listing Presentation. And at the very bottom of your screen, one last time, there is a website called associateworks.com/bulletproof listing where a lot of the templates belong. Now, I just went for a 3-mile walk with the number 2 Berkshire agent in Florida. And he was talking to me about his listing presentation. And he was talking to me about some of the things that he does as a listing agent in 2015, moving to 2016. And we reached an agreement that technology is playing a much different role in the listing presentation than it was just a few years ago. I want to strongly encourage you to look into Pixeet, Pixeet.com. As a listing agent, your job is ultimately to differentiate yourself. And your job is to stand out from the rest of the crowd. So what I'm going to encourage you to do before we get into the nuts and bolts of how to build and present a bulletproof listing presentation, I'm going to recommend that you understand how Pixeet can create an unlimited number of virtual tours, but we call them virtual reality tours now. And the connection that I made with this gentleman from Berkshire was that I explained to him, and he explained back to me, that what he's really doing with the virtual tours is offering a price reduction conversation for a month or two later. So when he shows the seller what a virtual tour does in 2015, moving to 2016, he actually has a conversation that goes like this. He does the Pixeet visual right in front of the seller. He films their own room. He opens the computer right in front of them, and he shows them what a 360-degree augmented virtual tour feels like with their own home. And then at the listing appointment, he explains to them that today he doesn't need to show their house 6-7 times a week, that he actually can show it 60 to 70 times a week online, and then just bring the 2 or 3 people by a week that have real, legitimate, qualified interest in their home. The reason he does that, and we talked about it at great length on our little walk, we were out for about an hour and 15 minutes today. He said that when he offers the virtual tour process, the new augmented virtual reality tour that Pixeet offers, he can explain to a seller a month from now or 60 days from now that can you see how many people have looked at your home? Because he can show them all the clicks on Realtor.com. He can show them all the clicks on his single property websites through MyWorkSuite. He can show them all the traffic, but we haven't been converting as much showings as what I would like to see. So what I'm finding is that your house isn't showing up in the right price point that it is. What the realtors from Caldwell and Century 21 RE/MAX and ERA are telling me is that they show it, but then it doesn't match the price point that they were hoping, or the same value as the other property. So hopefully that's a takeaway that you can use from the number 2 Berkshire Hathaway agent in Florida that I just spent an hour and a half with. So we're going to kind of dissect the actual listing presentation. And before we get into the nuts and bolts, I just want to confide in you that most real estate agents don't do a listing presentation. Most real estate agents don't really go on very many listing appointments, do they? They certainly go on some with their sisters and their brothers and their cousins and their friends, and they do a little bit of sphere of influence. But most real estate agents don't go out and go on 4 or 5 listing appointments a week, do they? So because they're not professional listing agents, they never have to learn how to do a formidable listing sequence. And I'm going to have you jot something down now. I don't think it's going to come up in writing in the rest of this conversation. But if you jot anything down, Alan, who just logged on in Fort Myers, or Barbara, who's up in, I don't know, New Hampshire maybe. What I'm going to recommend that you write down is that ultimately sales can be defined as an organized presentation. Sales, in order to be effective, needs to be an organized presentation of compelling arguments. When you approach sales from the definition of an organized presentation of compelling arguments to build rapport and influence decision making, that's a long sentence, right? I'm going to say it one more time. An organized presentation of compelling arguments to build rapport and influence decision making. What you're really saying is that your job in sales is to actually change someone's mind. So before you poo-poo the idea that an organized presentation of compelling arguments to build rapport and influence decision making is overkill for listings, start to look at what the top listing agents in the country do. Don't match and mirror the losers in the industry. Just because the average person who sells 6 to 10 houses a year doesn't have a listing presentation doesn't mean that that's professional. Doesn't mean that that's productive, and it doesn't mean that it's appropriate for you. Instead, what I would do is I would take a look at our industry and realize that 85% of the people that have your license are starving to death. And they are pathetically unprepared, unprofessional, uncommitted people. So if you can start to become a prepared, professional person who does hold sales as a high value skill set, then you can realize that an organized presentation of compelling arguments to build rapport and influence decision making is what we're going to talk about here today. So being on time, being well dressed, being organized. The best salesperson I ever met says always look your client in the left eye, always smile, always be polite, always be complimentary. Direct the presentation to the kitchen or the dining room table. Why is that, guys? Because when I get in a listing presentation, I want the couple on one side of me. I don't want them on a sofa spread out around a living room. I want them at a kitchen table so that I can spread out and show them things about their house and about my profession so that we can make a connection. Would it be okay if I put my things down here at the kitchen table? Or maybe it's the dining room table, right? Don't be shy to take positive professional control of the relationship. Now, before we get started this evening, would you mind if I took a little tour of your home so I could get to know a little bit more about the house and a little bit more about the product that we might be selling? They say, sure. Could you show me around? This is the time for you to build rapport. In the nickel tour, it's a great time to ask thoughtful questions. Things like, did you decide to put all this tile on a diagonal? Did you put in the wood trim? Did you elevate the floorboards? Did you put in these French doors? Wow, did you redecorate this kitchen? You did a great job. What drew you to this house the most? And make sure you're taking notes. Make sure you're building rapport by petting the dog, and it sounds so silly, but paying attention to their children and asking questions about their children asking for permission before you open a door in their home, even asking permission if you can pull back the shower curtain to look at the tile or anything that you're going to do in their home. Elicit information about the seller's motivation during the nickel tour. What a great time if you haven't already found out from them where they're moving, why they're moving, what their motivation is, when the perfect time for a move is. I see the nickel tour as the precursor to the date. We just want to get to know each other a little bit better as we're walking through their home and getting to know the property better. Make sure that you have a couple of strong anecdotal stories. What I mean by that is keep a couple of great anecdotes or stories in your back pocket so that when you're on the nickel tour, you can say, you know what? One of the houses that was the toughest house to sell had a converted garage because they made it for their mother-in-law. And what we were able to do is prevent some of the typical headaches that happen with a conversion like that by disclosing to the upcoming buyer that there might have been unworkmanlike repairs or unpermitted additions. And we were able to get that house sold and closed. Or you might say, you know, the last house that I sold that was on power lines like this was on, not on this road, but a few blocks over on these same power lines. And we were able to help the seller get the highest possible price. Don't let power lines be a reason that you can't get the highest possible price. You got to get with a good realtor who knows how to deal with that. Or you could say if it backs up to a street, or you could say if it has an oversized yard. You've got to have some kind of an anecdote or story that demonstrates your professionalism and your credibility. Maybe you have an in-house attorney that worked out a deal. Maybe you brought in concierge that helped them with something. And all of those little anecdotes and stories should be in your back pocket as a real estate agent. Now, this is something that was taught to me by Craig Proctor. Now I've asked him for permission to put my things at the kitchen table. I've asked him to take a nickel tour. Now I direct everybody back to the table. Hopefully the husband and wife are both there. And I'm usually going to take this opportunity to say something like this. Hey, Belinda, I've been selling houses here in Daytona since 1986. And I'm going to be selling homes here until 2026. So what I want you to know right up front is whether you decide to put your home on the market tonight, 2 days from now, or 2 weeks from now, it doesn't matter to me. I don't have a preference. But I do have one opportunity to show you how I've been successful selling homes just like yours. Do you mind if I take a few minutes and go through that to show you how I work? And then I'll usually make some silly little statement at the end. I won't bore you with a long sales pitch, but I really want to take a few minutes to show you how I work. Is that okay? The reason that I've always done the safe island technique, as it was taught to me by Floyd Wickman, is that it really does create a sense of positive professional control right off the bat. And if you're not a heavy-duty listing agent, it's not going to be intuitive to you to take positive professional control. So whether you use that safe island or you use a safe island that says something like this, listen, I want you to know right off the bat, I'm not going to make any pressure to help you make a decision tonight. It's okay with me whenever you decide to put your home on the market. I like mine better, by the way. Whether you decide tomorrow, next week, or next month, I'll be selling homes just like yours in Coral Springs Country Club for years. So there's no place else I'd rather be than sitting here, right here with you right now. And then you could say something like, do you mind if I go through a little bit of a brief presentation to show you how I'm going to be able to get your whole house sold and how we're consistently getting the highest possible price? And then when I'm done, I'll review my broker price opinion or my CMA with you, and we'll go through all the math. Is that okay? See, you want to let them know what's expected. You want to let them know that you are going to divulge price and you are going to divulge commissions. But if you jump right into commissions and price right in the version, I like the first version too, Belinda. I've done that myself for about 30 years now, as it was taught to me by Floyd Wickman. But we give you a couple of pointers in case you don't feel comfortable with our safe island. The objective of a safe island is to elevate your credibility and your professionalism, to remove the seller's fears, and to ultimately get permission. When you get permission, then you've removed that 800-pound gorilla in the room. You've eliminated the dialogue about get to the point, get to the price, get to the commission. I wanted to, some sellers are going to do that, But most sellers, if they have a better than 100 IQ and they have a better than a defensive demeanor, they're going to be open to a little bit of dialogue. Okay, let me ask you a couple questions. And for me, I would rather take option one. I would rather get these questions answered before the appointment on the phone. But if you weren't strong enough on the phone and you were like, please get the appointment, and then you get the appointment and you're scared to call them back because you're afraid they're going to cancel the appointment, then you might not ask these questions on the phone, right? But get these answers during the nickel tour, if you can, without sounding like a detective. You know, if you're going to sound like you're just going down a list of questions, you're going to get shut down. But at least at the beginning of the presentation, you might want to ask some questions like, how soon were you hoping to make a move? Like if you had a magic wand, would you move before the holidays? Would you move maybe after the first of the year? Or would you be wanting to look more like the spring? And that's a nice, easy, light question. And if you don't mind me asking, where are you hoping to make your move to? Are you thinking about moving locally? Do you think you're going to rent for a year? Are you thinking you're going to move to the Northeast? What's the most important thing to you? Before I get started talking about myself and my company, what's the most important thing that you guys want to accomplish tonight, especially as it relates to selling your house? And it might be price, it might be commission, it might be, fast. It could be any different thing. And that's just a great way to open dialogue and to start to talk to the seller about their needs. We cannot make and devise a presentation for every brokerage. We serve 31,000 agents from 45 different brands and about 1,800 independents. And we can't devise your brokerage presentation. My advice to you is to sit down with your broker owner and create a 90 to 120 second biography or resume about why you chose to work for this broker. It is not hard to tell the story about why you chose to work for your broker. Having humble beginnings with your broker is an interesting thing that starts the conversation going. Having technology advancements like MyWorks Suite at your brokerage, and I'm going to be proud to show those to you in just a minute, you can say. Lead generation, the commitment that my broker makes to buyer marketing is an incredible asset for me and my sellers. To say to the seller at the beginning why this broker is the best in the area, it's vulnerable, it's transparent, and sometimes you can say something like this, Brian. You could say, look, I get offers from Berkshire, I get offers from Remax, I get offers from Citrus Horn. I'm a very highly productive real estate agent, so I get job offers from all of the big firms in town, but I want to explain to you why I work for this broker. And if you can be proud of that and have some passion and some conviction about it, tell the seller why you choose to work for this brokerage instead of the others in town, and your seller will make emotional connection to that. Use the we versus I philosophy. One of the greatest lessons in sales is when you stop believing that I is the most important word and start realizing that we is more fun, we is more productive, we is more credible, and we is a better way to sell your services than saying I all the time. It just is. So I'm old school, so I still like a book, and all of you online are probably laughing at my old rear end right now. You're like, oh, he's so old, he still likes a book. I use a lot of Prezi in my work. I use a lot of PowerPoint in my work. I have a lot of videos in my work, and I certainly have a lot of Vimeo and YouTube in my work. But for eyeball to eyeball, belly to belly, belly button to belly button sales, I still like to pull out paper, and I like to have the seller and I kind of shoulder to shoulder looking at things together. I don't like my listing presentations to be very presentational whatsoever. I like them to be much more conversational. So we're going to review all the detail of the PowerPoints and the publishers in Wednesday's workshop. But for now, all those things are on associateworks.com/bulletproof listing at the bottom of your PowerPoint there. But what we like to have is a very, very professional photograph and your company logo to be the first thing they see. And then if there was a particular marketing piece that might have had them call you, maybe it was your for sale by owner marketing, maybe it was your expired listing marketing, maybe it was just your farming materials, maybe it was something that you do very, very compelling online. Whatever that is, you want to open with that because that's obviously what got them to call you. So you want to bring that to the forefront of the conversation. We also use a document called Hours and Guaranteed Exposure. This gets into what's expected during the first 30 days of a listing agreement and what's expected after 30 days. I like to go through every nut and bolt. Now, each of you are going to have different nuts and bolts. We're not suggesting that our 11 or your 11, but simply stated what's going to happen during the first 30 days. And then watch what we do here. We move to the second 30 days and we say things like, well, let me get to the second 30 days. We say things like, look at Belinda's giving me a hard time, the older homeowners like me. I'm just teasing you. But ultimately, during this guaranteed exposure premise, I like to say things like, if for any reason your house is not sold during the first 30 days that we're on the market, then what we're going to do is we're going to come and sit right back down here again. And we're going to analyze what the feedback has been from the buyers and the agents. And we're going to review what those buyers thought and what they might have bought instead of your home. And I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to say the most important sentence you can say to a seller is what they thought and what they bought. Because what you're doing in that sentence is you're shifting responsibility to them about the price and condition of their home. The worst thing you could do as an inexperienced agent is to give the seller the control. You will lose all credibility once you give the seller control. So I like to say, if for any reason your house is not sold within the first 30 days, we're going to sit down and analyze what the buyers thought about your home and what they bought instead of your home. Now, we have some other printed material that's online, but this is ultimately my favorite conversation. And this is the triangle called marketing, accessibility, and price. I want you to know that, there's three major decisions that you're going to make if you decide to put your house on the market. The first one is who's going to be handling the marketing, which hopefully I'm going to go through with you. But ultimately, there's two decisions that I don't have anything to do with. And ultimately, you're going to say jump, and I'm going to say how high. You're the boss here. And ultimately, if I tell you that I believe that your house is worth X and you decide to price your house at Y, then you're going to be dramatically affecting our ability to sell it. Or if you don't provide me accessibility to show your home, I can't sell a home if I can't show a home. So if you're going to make it difficult for realtors from across the county to gain access to your home, then you're going to derogatorily affect our ability to sell it. Does that make sense? So 2 of the 3 legs of this stool are controlled by you. I only can handle the amount of people that are aware that your house is for sale. You're going to ultimately determine how many people can see it and what price we ask. Is that fair? And those 3 important decisions are what we're talking about a little bit today. Now that I've got most of the precursor stuff out of the way with the seller and I've set the tone, then I'm going to probably want to go in something like this about my bio. And this is a little bit condensed language in here, and I don't know that I would use this maybe more pictures and things and just tell this story. But in order for you guys to see what a bio looks like, I wanted to give you like a bio and a motto and a personal goals and professional goals, because it does help tell the seller who you are. And referring to yourself as a team rather than an individual is always a positive. So try to focus on that when you're going through your personal bio. These documents are useful right here. This is a Craig Proctor document on the far right. I'm not sure if he owns a copyright on it, but I do pay my respects to Craig Proctor because I was a student of his for a long time. And I love what he does on the right-hand side there, where he says how most agents operate, juggling all the balls, and how our team operates as a professional group. And that was a great piece for us when we were talking to our sellers about how efficient we are. The piece on the left is a little bit more, maybe a little bit less formal, But the reason I love to show it to you is it really enunciates the we versus the I. What you can do at the beginning of the listing presentation is to explain to the seller how your team works. See, I'm in South Florida, so a lot of people speak Spanish. A lot of people speak Portuguese. A lot of people even speak Mandarin. And there's a tremendous amount of diversity in our South Florida communities. If you're in Atlanta, we know that's true. If you're in different parts of the country, you have a lot of diversity and language barriers building. So what you can do is to explain to them how your team works together to get these houses sold. And I don't care if you don't have an actual team that you work with. Use the other realtors in your office. Talk to them about the networks that you belong to, either with your national franchise or with a particular GRI network, CRS network. Maybe you're a member of the Women's Council of Realtors and you share referrals all over the country. And this is such a vital conversation for every realtor online. Remember, I showed you that technology. See, it's one thing to syndicate our listings to all these different websites, right? And we do that. 85% of home buyers start their home search on the web today. But unless I can capture the leads, I'm nothing more but a free place to shop. Okay? I'm not in the free information business. I'm in the capturing of leads business. So when we use smart lead capture technology, QR codes, text autoresponders, and we use click-through guest registration books, we're able to capture the leads and hopefully convert them for you. Now, I want to talk about this for just a moment with you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Miss Branch, I know you're up in Pennsylvania. I've been working in Harrisburg for my whole life. What I want to do for you is I want to share with you that most of the buyers that buy houses in Harrisburg don't come from Harrisburg. We get buyers from New York, New Jersey. We get new buyers from other parts of Pennsylvania. We get buyers from Chicago and all over the country. And what's exciting for me is I can broadcast your home through dozens and dozens and dozens of different websites and get hundreds of millions of visits each month to your house. And by the technology I showed you earlier, we can capture those leads. Now let's talk turkey. Some of the buyers that contacted me in February of 2015 are just getting around to buying houses today. Some of the buyers that are going to contact me today won't buy a house until June or July of next year. How does that bode for you if I have been harvesting leads in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania since 2009? I mean, truthfully, I have buyer leads from 1986 through 2006, but at least the most relevant ones are families like you that are going to be buying a house in the next 6 months. By harvesting these leads in this meaningful ways through Realtor.com, I mean, think about this, 6.6 million buyers a month shop on Realtor.com, and that gives us an opportunity to enhance our relationships with those consumers through Realtor.com. Some of the realtors that you interview will never even bother to enhance their listings on Realtor.com because they're part-timers or they're not confident in the technology. We can go in to your home through our virtual tour, show every consumer, like I showed you with that pick seat, every inch of your home, and I can monitor how many people looked at your house. I can monitor how many people took the virtual tour of your house, and guess what? I can monitor how many people set an appointment to see your house. So if we're seeing 1,100 people take the virtual tour and none of them are converting to showings, then we know we have a problem. But if we're seeing 1,100 people view the home and 7 or 8 or 10 of them are converting to actual showings, then we know that we're right in the sweet spot. These virtual tours are a big deal for 2016 real estate, and they give us an opportunity to test the water with buyers that are out of town or maybe not ready to buy yet, but they can come and see your house without bothering you and your family. I'm at the tail end of the listing presentation now. It's winding down. An organized presentation of compelling arguments to influence decision-making and build rapport. I've now gotten them to a point where they know me. They're starting to respect me. I've given them a little bit of the nuts and bolts of how I work a little differently than most agents. And now I want to tell you about my favorite thing that I do in this community. Have you ever noticed that up and down your street, up and down your neighborhood, there's teachers, there's firefighters, there's veterans? We have a program called Hero Home Source where we serve all of the nation's most respected public servants. And because we belong to this network, teachers, firefighters, police officers, and military personnel, especially the 1 out of every 3 men that are over the age of 45 that were in some branch of the military, they all benefit through deep discounts and rebates through this network. So we have a pipeline of families that are law enforcement families, firefighter families, teacher families, and military family, even honorably discharged veterans that take advantage of this network, and we bring them to your home. See, we're not just sitting back and putting our feet up on our desk and waiting for the MLS to sell your house. And I got to tell you, the first real estate company I ever worked for used to teach us, take the listing for 6 months and wait for it to sell in the MLS. That is an obsolete piece of equipment, ma'am. We need to be out in the community, networking with families, hosting these open houses, having cutting edge technology. We need to be in front of your the realtor community and the buyers at large. I do that every day. I have 3 children I'm raising. I'm going to put 3 kids through college, and 2 of them are going to need weddings. I'm pretty sure I got to bust my hump to get these houses sold because I don't have time to be a part-time dabbler in this business like some of the realtors are. I'm a very, very hungry full-time realtor. That conversation resonates through many of my listing presentations over and over and over. If you have an in-house concierge, if you have an in-house title company, if you have an in-house mortgage provider like AnnieMac, if you have a transaction coordinator, now's the time to talk to them about the fact that one-stop shopping is always important. If you've gained your GRI, your CRS, if you're a staging professional, if you're a customer first professional, this is the time to show them that you've went above and beyond in your career. Show them some extra property brochures, or if you have one on their house. I always turn my page to my book. I've got hundreds and hundreds of letters from families, all that I've served. I want you to thumb through them. I want you to get to know who I worked for and how I work. And this is how I close the sale. This is my close at the end of a listing presentation. Shonda, do you have any questions that I didn't cover that you would have liked to have us discuss about your property? I haven't gone through price yet, have I? Has anyone else offered you anything that's maybe more interesting than what we've already discussed? Is there anything that, somebody else is doing that I didn't catch? I mean, I do this 8 days a week, 20 hours a day. I mean, is there something that I'm missing that's out there that might be different? So I'm going to tell you how I do it, but the next question is a closing question. In print here it says, shall we go ahead and get started on selling your home? But I'm going to show you what I do. You can move right to, I just have a basic agreement for us to fill out. But let me show you what I say in italics at the bottom, and I just love the flavor of it. So instead of asking about the listing or the agreement or anything, I do what's called an assumptive close, and I say, hey, Doug, so in a perfect world, when would be the right time that I could begin showing your house? To me, it's the best close in the world. And I take a very cocky approach by saying, well, I know I could schedule at least showing this week because I know of a family that I know I could show it this week. But would you rather wait until after this weekend to give you an opportunity to maybe prepare? This is where your assumptive close puts them in a position to defend against. So they're going to say something like, no. So if I agreed to start showing your house on Monday instead of tomorrow, Would that be about right for you? What a great close, because now you're giving them the opportunity to say, no, I really want to wait until the 1st of December. All right, so here's what I'm going to recommend. It takes me about 2 weeks to gear up all of our marketing, internet syndication, and all of our smart lead capture and all the technology and get the signs up and do everything I need to do. What do you say about executing an agreement with me that says that I can't start showing your house till December 1st? I'm not going to put it in the MLS till December 1st, and I'm really not going to do much in the way of showings until after December 1st. But I know that you've hired me. You know that you've hired me, and I can go to work right now so that we're not waiting from December 1st to December 15th for all the marketing to ramp up. How does that sound? Get them to close now. If they say no, that they're not willing to close, that's when I pull out an estimated net proceeds sheet. Because they said no, I want to start to go to how does the estimated net proceeds convert. So I might say something like this. They say, no, we're not ready yet. We don't want to list our house yet. So I would say something like, do you want to take a few minutes and do some math so you can see how much you would net if we sold your house? I've never had a seller say no to math. They always say yes to math. So if I do the math with them and I get into the nuts and bolts of their first mortgage balance, their second mortgage balance, any of the doc stamps, abstract doc stamps, broker fee, doc prep, any other fees that they're going to incur, and then I show them a net proceeds of $53,665 at $350,000, now we can talk about how that converts into the house they're buying. Some of you think I sound like a car sales person because I'm very, very assertive in my sales presentation. But I believe that people want to be sold. I believe that people want to be courted. I believe that people don't want a salesperson that takes the first no for an answer. So when somebody says no to me, they're not ready, then I go to the next compelling argument. The next compelling argument in this case is to do some math together. And then I show them the affordability index on the houses they'd be buying. And I show them how putting $53,000 or $44,000 on their next home is going to convert into mortgage payment, PITI. I might even get my Annie Mac home mortgage rep to show them specifically what their mortgage payment would be on their next home. Because when they see that conversion, they fall in love with me. I also want to talk to them about my in-house title company, my in-house attorney. I want to talk to them about 82% of buyers and sellers would prefer a one-stop shop. So my mortgage alliance, my title alliance, my insurance alliance are a big deal. And this is how so many families from across the country, from across this county have ultimately entrusted me with the responsibility to sell their most valuable asset. I know I'm a little bit of a fast talker, and I hope that you kept up with all the granularity in a Bulletproof Listing presentation. We felt like we gave you a good roadmap to walk through that hour that you're going to spend with a family. You guys got to know this. There's no more valuable hour in the residential real estate business than a listing presentation. There is not a more valuable hour than a listing presentation. It's the highest return on invested time for a realtor. So preparing yourself for it and seeing it as an organized presentation rather than a whimsical kind of winging it attitude, it's mature, it's professional, and it's what the most productive realtors in the country do. If you're interested, join us for Wednesday's workshop. Carrie Krumenacker is going to go host Wednesday. She's going to give you all the documents that you can put in your book or in your PowerPoint. She's going to give you a proven pre-listing drop-off. She's going to teach you how to receive glowing testimonials at closing. And we're also going to talk a little bit about on Wednesday about how to integrate your staging professional designation and your customer first collateral material into your Bulletproof Listing presentation. So it's been my pleasure and privilege to talk about what I think is the most important skill set in residential real estate. If you know how to do a listing presentation, it makes you a better prospector. If you know how to do a good listing presentation, it makes you less shy about calling by owners. you hesitate to call my owners and expireds because you don't have a listing presentation. If you would ever master the listing presentation, you'd be a much more compelling prospector, because you know once you get in the living room, you close them. So with that said, AnnieMac is our sponsor. If you could show AnnieMac some love this week, reach out and call your loan officer for me. Say you took a listing presentation class this week that you loved. Tell your loan officer that it's the reason that you honor him with a pre-qual or a loan app, and tell them why you love AnnieMac Works. It means a lot to me. That's the way that you can show us gratitude for what we do for free. We don't get paid by any of our real estate partners across the country. We only hope that you'll honor our sponsor, AnnieMac Home Mortgage, and pay it forward a little bit with them. But so if you know a realtor that needs to learn how to do listing presentations, reach out to them and tell them to be on at 2 o'clock. If not, we'll see you on Wednesday's workshop with Kerry Krumnacher. Thanks again.